Three, two, one. Welcome to Artist on Record, your ultimate intimate conversation with your favorite artist. If it's your first time here, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified, of course, and post your comments down below. We always love to hear from you. In the hot seat from legendary Sweet, we have guitarist, original band member, Mr. Andy Scott. He's going to be in here talking to us about the Sweet Farewell Tour. It's all going to start now. Don't touch that dial. Studio. Welcome to the studio. Welcome to my home. My home is your home. I guess we're both in each other's homes, right?
Well, yeah. I'm locked away in the bedroom here, where I've got an office above, because my wife's got the grandkids down the other end, and they are rather noisy. So I've locked myself away.
You locked it. Well, so we're actually in your bedroom right now.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a big TV over there. There's a walk-in wardrobe there. My office is above, and the bed's that way.
So it's like a loft almost. You have upstairs. It's a cool bedroom.
Well, this is a barn. This is one of the last elm barns in Britain, basically, but certainly in Wiltshire, after the elm blight of the 1900s. There wasn't much sort of elm wood left, but this dates back to just before the 1800, and the wood isn't in that bad a condition, but I've had to bolster it with a bit of new oak, new seasoned oak. And I've lived here now for 25 years, maybe a bit more, so and of course this has become my workplace as well, because down the other end there's an area much bigger than this bedroom, which is the living room open to the gods, as this is, and we rehearse down there. So it's a living room, it's a rehearsal room, it's a recording space.
I love it. It's very rock and roll, old school.
Yeah, you should tell my wife, because she'd like a house again.
Oh, she wants a house, huh?
Yeah.
but she married a guitarist from a rock and roll band, and that's the way it has to be. We have eccentric homes. Like Jimmy Page has his thing, it's great.
Yeah, but it's you still have to get along, and when she said, "Is that it for buying guitars now?" and I said, "A guy who stops buying guitars, who's got a few, is no longer a collector. He is a hoarder." So,
So you get grief just like I do. See, we all
a little bit.
Yeah. In the beginning, when we get them and we find them, they're okay. The day, I love this. I love that.
Yeah.
Like I was in the Moroccan look. I wanted that, that whole, Beggar's Banquet vibe I used to love, right?
Well,
it all went downhill. Yeah. You do too, right?
No, I can see behind you.
Behind. Well,
No. I'm afraid we've gone down the other route of whitish walls with woods and flag floors and all that kind of stuff. And if we were in the living room, you'd see the size of the fireplace that we've got down there. So yeah.
This is an illusion. This is the only room that looks like this. The rest of the house is white, and it's mid-century modern. That's it. This is just an illusion. This is just my leftover amps, and this is all an illusion. It's all I got left. Like the movie The Jerk. If I was going to leave, all I'm going to take is that hat and this amp and that. Steve Martin.
There we are.
But anyway, my man, I'm glad you're here. So you just announced the Sweet Farewell Tour. You're going to be performing greatest hits, Ballroom Blitz, Fox on Around, Love is Like Oxygen, all these great songs, Hellraiser. And what made you finally just say, hey, this is it?
Well, since my prostate cancer, which we talked about the last time, I think, it goes through your mind as to just how much longer do you want to do it. But since talking to the guys last year, I've had a change of heart, really. But some of these things are already in progression. And farewell does not exactly mean goodbye, remember. You say farewell to people when you think, I might not see them for a little while. And I'm using that as an excuse, because I don't see myself stopping gigging, but I do see myself stopping doing tours. I think the one you've picked up on is in Australia, isn't it?
Yeah.
That tour. I'm not going to be doing tours of like 3 or 4 weeks ever again. You know, I'll try and do a week or two, you know, here and there. And I understand that when you go down to Australia, you can't just go for 5 days. You know, it's going to take you 5 days to kind of come to terms with how far you've traveled around the world.
Yeah.
So it's, you have to say it's farewell. And the weird thing is, ever since he's announced it, we're going back into Melbourne to do 2 more dates at that Palms Casino. And already the people in Perth have come out of the woodwork and said, come and do a couple of gigs in our theatre there that we've done before. So I think this has got legs, but it can only have legs so far because we have a British tour that we're going straight back into in December. So I think there has to come a moment when the worm can't go any further. He'll hit a wall, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess you said it good, huh? The worm, you hit the wall. I guess you're right on that, huh?
Yeah, well, you know, it's still going. Yeah, how many more gigs can we do? Oh, sorry. That's it. I've got to
That's it.
turn back now.
Yeah. Yeah. What about United States coming out here?
The problem with the United States is, I don't know whether we touched on this the last time, but Steve left some unfinished business, and his family have kind of picked up on it and given a kind of permission. And he was an original member, remember, Steve,
Mm-hmm.
for his backing band to go out and do some dates. Now, the sad thing is they're doing dates under the name Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not willing at this moment. I'm 75 this year. Why am I going to go to war with something that isn't interfering with me? Now, I'd love to come over and do some dates. And we were talking at one point of doing some of these casino runs where, you know, maybe us and a band like Cheap Trick, maybe not Cheap Trick, but a band like that, you know, doing like 3 weeks, you know, going from one place to the other, where you stay in the casino and you play the night
Mm-hmm.
and then move on. I mean, I saw the Doobie Brothers with Leonard Skinner. I mean, they were great, and it's not like the kind of casino work that we know of in Britain. That's still for bands that are, should we say, chart bands rather than bands that have got a legacy, you know.
Yeah.
So that's the only problem right at this moment with America. The last couple of things that I did in America were not exactly, should we say, the best gigs that we've done. They were a little underwhelming. We did some great gigs in the 90s and the early 2000s, but when we came out in, I think it was about 2005, the gigs just weren't the same. You know, they weren't like the Limelight in New York, or the you know, the special places. We even played Pleasure Island down in Disney World, you know. So
Yeah.
it's you have to be able to do the right gigs, and with my health, I'm not willing to put myself through what a 20-year-old would have to go through. It can't happen anymore. So there we are.
No. I mean, you're totally right. Just traveling just to get on a plane nowadays and
Yeah.
go with all the people, and it's not what it used to be. It's a big headache, and the
Yeah.
layovers and the delays. You just
And
beat
your politics is well weird at the moment.
it's let me tell you, it's weird. I don't even want to travel myself. Oh, this
Yeah.
2 days in a row, 2 planes, like a FedEx plane, it no dived,
Yeah.
like a skidded off the runway. Those 747, the Boeings that's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
It's that's a whole other story. Whistleblowers. I'm like, what's going on in the
Yeah.
world? It's
Yeah.
like it's always something. You know,
Yeah.
back when we started to play rock and roll, we couldn't wait to get on a plane. Or for you, I can't wait to go to America. Or for me, I want to go
Exactly.
to the other side. I want to go with
Yeah.
England. Take me to England, you know. But
Well,
now it's
when I was growing up in the 60s, America was kind of where it's at, and the British bands were kind of not learning but grabbing some. And then all of a sudden, something changed in the mid 60s after the Beatles, and it was like a British invasion into America. But when I was kind of like 14, the bands and the things that I was kind of following were American. That kind of rock that came out of America, like Elvis and things like that. It was and of course a lot of the songs that were being written, like Blue Suede Shoes, and you start thinking, that and the first stars like Cliff and Tommy Steele and people like that, they were like copying, the Elvises and the and others. So it's
Totally.
and then it kind of turned around, and I think in the 70s, we had a little bit of a heyday where the bands like Mark Bolan was the first. Then I think we managed to come over, and then I think Queen were a little bit later. So that doors were being opened back then. But it seems weird that not all the bands that were having big success in Europe and in England were actually having success over in the States. It was like they cherry picked what they wanted, and I suppose I have to think myself very lucky to have done what I've done in my life.
It was a great time. And when you even mention later, when you mentioned the limelight, that was a whole nother later, but there was still a scene. There was still people,
Oh yeah,
people going to record stores. It wasn't the internet. I mean, the internet like this, it's a curse and a blessing. You get the word out. You don't need the big record companies. But back in the day, it's just, there was a scene, there was a community. New York had its scene, that limelight scene. It was incredible. You had the VIP room. It was a
yeah.
church. It
Well,
was like,
here's a story. I've
yeah.
been in the VIP room up in New York and in London with Lemmy.
Oh,
Each time. It's been mad sometimes.
with Lemmy, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me, you have some good Lemmy stories? He was a great guy. I
Well,
know. Yeah.
yeah, he slept on my couch. I've slept on his after nights out. It depends. He lived, how far would I say? About just a bit more than half a mile from where I lived in Maida Vale. This was when they were starting to move into America in the 80s. And we shared a storage area where we would rehearse and stuff. And it was great. We used to meet up a fair amount, played pool in the local pub more than rehearsed. And then he wasn't living in the house, the Motorhead house anymore. He had like a hotel apartment place in Maida Vale on the main drag, and I was up one of the main avenues that connected to Paddington in my flat, and we just used to meet up, and he would say, right, let's go and have a pint, and then we'd end up in places like the Limelight, and then I would say things like, I think it's time to go home. And the next thing I knew, there was a white finger in my Jack Daniels and Coke being stirred in. And I thought, well, I'm not going home yet then.
So that was hanging out with, how did you guys meet, you and Lemmy?
Long time ago. He was in Hawkwind, and I was in a different band from Sweet. And then we did a Goldsmiths College. And I think he was, he'd come back for a short period. This was before Motorhead, and they were like the main band, and we played before them. And I think he was expecting to have a bit of a laugh, and he came up afterwards and went, "That was great. That was brilliant," And I went, "Yeah, well, cheers," And it kind of stuck, But then I didn't see him much until the 80s. So.
Till the 80s, huh? Did you ever got to visit him when he was living in West Hollywood off of Sunset Boulevard?
Yeah, his band came to the gig. He didn't, so I got on the blower, and he said, "Well, you better come over to the house." I was there for a short period, but my drummer ended up staying for a little bit longer with my singer Mal, and Mick Tucker and Mal ended up being thrown out of the house Lemmy phoned me up. I was now back in the hotel where we were staying, and he rang me up and he basically said, "How do I get rid of your drummer?" And I said, "I don't care. Just chuck him out." So a couple of people just grabbed all of them and said, "Now fuck off," you know. So
Oh, fantastic.
yeah.
Fantastic. He was a sweet guy, you know. Lemmy was a sweet guy. He had a band with my good friend Slim Jim Phantom, and Slim Jim from the Stray Cats owned a club on Sunset called the Cat Club. So Jim was
Oh
the
yeah,
drummer. Yeah,
I know it. Yeah,
you know it. And we would jam every
yeah,
Thursday night, and Lemmy would come to hang out with Slim Jim. They had a band called, I think, Hellcat, or I forget the name. They had some Headcat. It was Headcat,
yeah,
and Slim Jim, Danny Harvey, and Lemmy. It was I think a three-piece. But Lemmy would come jam with us, and I had pictures. But he wouldn't do Motorhead, and he'd blue suede shoes. We do stuff like that. Chuck Berry.
yeah.
Back in the USSR was his favorite to do, and I have me, Eric Singer, and Lemmy have a great picture of us jamming
Wow.
together.
Yeah,
Really, really cool. And he was a lovely guy. Um,
yeah.
at that time, I was in a band with Dee Dee Ramone before he passed away. And when he passed away, Dee Dee, Lemmy was at the end of the bar, the Cat Club, with his Jack and Coke. And I had a Dee Dee guitar pick. I go, "Hey, Lemmy, I know you were friends with Dee Dee. I just found this in my bag. Here, you could have it." And he went like this. He held it to his heart and went, "Thank you." But he was a nice guy, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
really
Well,
nice.
he pointed me. I was looking for somewhere that would make me a proper 335 Gibson 335 with all the detailing and everything. And he showed me. He just went like that, and I went, "Oh God, that's good," because what I was buying was this cheap muck that looked like a Stratocaster, but when you looked at the detail, you know, and and then he showed me his rings, and he said, "You need to go and see my mate at a place called the Great Frog in
Yeah.
Ward oh, Carnaby Street."
Hmm.
So I went down there, and the guy said, "I know exactly what you're looking for. Leave it with me." And I'd hardly told him, but I'd shown him a picture of a 335 and left it with him. When I got the thing back, it was silver with gold strings on it and gold pegs and a gold tremolo arm. And it was magnificent. One of the best things I ever had made, you
The
know.
details on that is
Oh, yeah.
probably incredible. I know the Great Frog very well. And I actually went to that location. Fantastic, fantastic
Mm,
jeweler he is. And yeah,
yeah,
beautiful stuff. They make for a lot of people, Iggy Pop and a bunch of
yeah.
people. But yeah, fantastic.
You were
Well,
you were also talking about Slim Jim, the tall guy.
mhm.
Anyway, he was going out with Britt Eklund when we were on tour there, and we did a couple of gigs with them. They must have been one of these kind of multi-bill things. I think we were on. I think they were finishing, and then there was a band between us and them, and somebody opened up. One of these four-act bills, and we went to just see what, because he's a great guitar player, Brian. So I was more interested to see what was going on. And there's somebody in a white wedding dress stood on the side of the stage. And I thought, oh, it's Britt Eklund in her wedding dress with a veil and everything, standing on the side watching the Stray Cats.
Oh my God. How
Yeah,
funny.
fantastic.
Fantastic. Oh, that's funny. Slim Jim, I always give him a hard time. I go, "Jim, you were Tommy Lee before Tommy Lee, with the
Yeah,
famous actors. He was that guy." And it's Britt Eklund,
yeah.
fabulous,
And
bomb, beautiful lady.
Mick Tucker with his staging and drum solo. Our drummer, he kick-started a lot of things. He used to have these two big screens that would come down, and he would do a drum battle with himself on the screens.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. That's pretty cool. Very
and then
cool.
he's carrying on drumming on the screens, and he jumps off the kit and he's playing the kettle drums.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
honestly
Oh,
mad, mad
great.
times, and none of this in-ear stuff. If the speakers weren't working properly, things were never perfectly in time.
Wow. Well, let me ask you, and I put some questions here to keep us flowing, to keep the show going too, as well, because me and you, I could chat with you about rock and roll, about everything here, and just the journey of Sweet. And I got to ask you over here, like, what in the early days, what were the challenges and victories for you?
Um, I think we came through in an era where PA systems were in their infancy. If you're talking about equipment and staging and things like that, lights were whatever the theatre had. And then a band called Iron Butterfly came over, and I went to see them at the Albert Hall with Yes, because we'd been supporting Yes, the band I was in before I joined Sweet. And they had this lighting rig and a Clare Brothers PA system. And I knew a couple of the guys from Yes, and I knew that they had a Welsh road manager. And after the gig, I was talking to somebody, and they said, we've done a deal with them that when they go back to America, we're keeping this PA system. Now, Yes always had the best PA system when we worked with them that I'd ever seen. A real mishmash of speakers, but it sounded really good. Because remember, back then, you had like what the Beatles had, those Vox upright things. We had Marshall ones, which were a bit wider, but the same idea. Open back so you could still hear something on stage. And you had 4, 2 either side. Well, PA systems needed a bottom end, a mid-range, and a top end. And this Clare Brothers system, I think, was 4-way. It had horns on the top. Never seen that before. You know, and these mid-range, you know, like louvers, and a huge bottom thing like that. And of course, that kick-started a lot of things. The first real PA that we bought was by Dave Martin with Sweet. And I remember going down to an aerodrome just outside London where people had set up businesses in the various hangars and stuff. And Dave had set up a PA system. It was a 3-way. They were big black boxes, but you knew that was the bass, you knew that was the middle, and you knew that was the top because they had these bullets in the top. I remember going down there with a couple of Pink Floyd, me and Mick, the drummer, to listen to this PA. Now remember, he's trying to play this PA into an open space that used to be an aerodrome in the war. You're thinking he should set it up inside if he wants to get any reaction. But it was clear and loud. And I remember us saying, we'll have one of those. And one of Pink Floyd turned around and went, we'll have double that, okay? And I remember going, you flash buggers, you know. But, you know, and then you start to realize that you don't need so much noise on stage. I mean, this is where it comes down to. We were like the Who back then.
Yeah.
Lots of volume on stage. Put a microphone inside the bass drum, because that's the only thing you're not going to pick up out front. And the rest was just vocals through the PA. And the guitars and bass sat with the drums as they were. But as time went on, you realize that having loud back lines, this massive back line with a great PA, you're now interfering with the PA. So you either go for the look or you still try and use it and keep it down in volume. Well, that's not as easy as you say anyway. You know, it's still a roar. And it wasn't really until we started to tour in America towards the end of the 70s that we realized that, yes, bring the speakers onto the stage, but we'll only use those 2, you know, and start miking things up properly and things like that. Because you look back at some of those early recordings of bands, and there would have been, to pick up the back line, there would have been 2 mics. And there might have been a mic over the drum kit, you know, and that was as good as you're going to get. And the rest of it was vocal mics. That's why on some of these live recordings that you see, the vocals are far too loud. But, you know,
Crazy.
There you have it.
When you think about that whole, because you were through the whole time now, when you see the big concerts and you see the sound systems and everything, how just raw it was. And we were learning back then what to use, what not to use, what to turn on, what not to turn on, you know?
Well, we had 4 1K rigs at every angle on the stage when it was our gig, 2 across the front and 2 across the back. So, because we were trying to wean Mick Tucker off his 1K behind his backside and trying to make it look a bit better. So we had these big speakers pointing at Mick and these two big speakers pointing across the front row. Now, the only person who had a bit of a problem at that point was Brian, being in the middle. I think he'd like to have worn a set of headphones, but you couldn't do that. So he had like an all-in-one box flown from the front truss, kind of half over his head. So we never had any feedback problems because the speakers were a fair way away, you know.
What, that was like his monitor over his head?
Yeah.
He was using it? Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Not on the floor.
But we always made sure that his truss, that the front truss was almost over the heads of the front row. You know, so you got lights that was, because when you're carrying your own thing,
yeah,
you can't just rely on, you know, you have your staging, and we worked out that to have that extra couple of yards or whatever it was hanging out the front, you then get lights down on you, not straight on your head. You know, and obviously they worked out a way of getting a speaker system to point at his mic. I mean, now I don't use them. I still have monitors on the floor, but the rest of my band have all got these in-ear, you know, student things. You know,
they're uncomfortable. I'm not used to it.
No, I can't do it.
I don't like it.
Player. Yeah,
I like the monitor. I actually like also with the monitor when you get the kick and you could feel the for a bass player. You feel the air.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Just something about it. It's more. I feel like.
But I have made sure that each one of them has a monitor and they have something coming through it.
Mm-hmm.
So that on stage it still feels like there's some gig going on. You know.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what do you feel the band's pivotal moments and that define the sound and success of your band?
Well, as I say, we came through in that late '60s period, but we were all aficionados of the Who and the Kinks, and we all loved the Yardbirds. You know, the three guitar players that went through that band, and then Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath. You know, these were the pivotal things that honed what we wanted. I brought in Vanilla Fudge into the band, you know, to show them that there are bands out there playing with a bit of guts and still got harmony vocals, you know. Three Dog Night, you know, all these things were inherent. And of course, the later days of the Beach Boys, you know. I mean, I always loved the Beach Boys. I mean, in one of my early school type bands, because I had the high voice, I used to sing fun, 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 and all those kinds of things. So it's when I joined, they'd met the songwriters and the producer Phil Wainman, and Phil Wainman said in an interview not that long ago, when he was being interviewed, they said, "So the suite," and he went, "Yeah." He said, "They were missing a guitar player," and he said, "What we wanted was somebody who would come in, sing his harmonies, play nicely and everything, and we got Jimi Hendrix." Was what he actually said, you know, which actually I'm very happy for him to have said that. But to try and compare me, I think what he was trying to say was this was somebody who couldn't be controlled. I think that's what he was trying to say. I think that because of that, we've lasted this long because we didn't agree with everything that was put at us. We always had an argument, or we always had a way of saying, we're not doing that, you know, and it's still happening today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had the guy who looks after a lot of what I do came to see me today, and he said, they're only saying, you know, it's the old record company thing where we've had 2 or 3 singles off an album that's going to be coming out later this year. And the 4th single that we've just presented to them, a song called Burning Like a Falling Star, is not really what they were expecting. And I said, well, I can't help that. Listen to the song. It's about the state of the world today, you know, that if we don't look after ourselves, you know, we're burning like a falling star here. And they like the idea of that, and the fact that, you know, there's so many people want to create problems and war and everything, but I think what they're looking for is they're looking for that thing that which doesn't exist anymore. I was trying to explain to them that where are those pop singles like the Ballroom Blitz and Fox on the Run? They're not there anymore. There's a whole new different pop scene there with things that are built in a computer that some of them don't even see a drum kit or a bass guitar, you know. So how can you compare some of that with what we're doing? The best thing you can do is do the best that you can and get it out there. And if something sticks, I mean, we had a bit of success with a song called Everything a couple of years ago, just after the pandemic. And they're now comparing to that. Well, that had 1.5 million views on YouTube, and it sold this amount. And then the next one was like a bit less, and the next one was a bit less. Well, it's the way of the world, you know. You can't always you can't have, well, you can, but you can't always have a garage full of Maseratis, you know. It's there's going to be bits and pieces. So from that point of view, not a lot has changed in my life. I'm 75 this year, and people were saying this to me when I was like 19, 20.
Yeah.
You know, have you got a better song than this? You know,
it's the same. It's the same game still. It's the same.
Yeah.
Same station. Same.
And of course,
channel.
you can't feel sorry for the record company, because these days they realized records weren't selling. They realized that downloads are not selling that much. So where did they go? They started to back all this streaming where the artist gets fuck all. So
yeah. It was different times. It was different things going on in the world, and you were feeding off the times.
And it's not even run by people who know anything about music. That's the problem.
That's a problem. I know. You get a good degree, you do good in school, you know how to ad write. Give them a job, let them control the music, but you don't know music.
Yeah.
I run into a situation, and I don't even know if I should say it because if they watch it, but I don't care. And my kid goes to school, and there's a music teacher, and I told him, I used to play with this guy. He goes, oh, really? And he's in a cover band of one of the people I played in. I'm like, oh, great. So then I go, you ever see Standing in the Shadows, and about the Funk Brothers? And he didn't know. I go, you don't know? And I got mental in my head.
Yeah.
I go, if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have a Paul McCartney, or you wouldn't have the people because he's more into the Guns N' Roses. But these people would not exist. That's the foundation. You don't know. Didn't know. And I go, and my wife, I go, it's driving me crazy that the music teacher doesn't know nothing. It bothers me. You get it.
But if you come in at a certain level, it's like some of the young guys that I work with. I mean, luckily, every one of them has come to me and gone, I've learned so much. You know, they didn't even know how to create backwards echoes and things like that. They just thought you turned it round. And I said, that's never going to work. You've got to turn everything round. You've got to turn the drum kit round if you want some backwards echoes on the drums. You can't just record the echo and then turn the echo round. It's fucking stupid, you know?
So I mean, yeah.
And of course, if you've never mic'd a drum kit up, then you don't really know what it sounds like, do you?
No. I mean, those guys playing with you to go into school. I mean, you were there at a time when music was great. What time when we used to look at our record albums and get lost and stare at the cover, and it was like we were reading a book and we used our imagination. I mean, now you could go on YouTube, you could learn Ballroom Blitz, Fox and Run, note from note from other people, but nobody's really listening, lifting up the needle 20 times to get what note is it, a half step down? There's different times. Let me ask you, Andy.
My first recordings were on my dad's old Grundig machine, and we worked out a way, because it was like it would go one mono that way and one mono that way, and we worked out a way that you could record on both tracks going that way, but not at the same time. So my brother and I would record something and then add something to it as it went through with the microphone. And then the first real band I was in recorded 4-track, which was incredible at the time.
Yeah.
We recorded the Elastic Band album on the 4-track. And when I listen back, I think, how did we get all... See, it's engineers that did all that. You then went to the BBC to do live recordings for like the various shows. because they had to have live music, they had to have what's called needle time, tape time, and you couldn't just have one type of. You couldn't just play records. It had to have a bit of all. So the record, the band of the week would be the Suite, and we go into the BBC studios. Now they didn't have multi-tracking; they had 3-track. You'd do 2 tracks, and then as it was being mixed, you could put another track in. And when I listened to some of those recordings, those engineers were very, very good, very clever, like the Abbey Road engineers. And if you've never come through that, you'll never learn about balance and mixing properly. And in those early stages, you have to have the bass drum sounding like that and the snare drum sounding like that, because by the time you get to your 3rd pass, it won't sound like that. It'll sound right. People start to look at that original recording and go, no, that's too loud. That wait until you get to the 3rd run, then it'll all slot into place. And it's experience, that people now don't need or have, because you go onto a computer and it does half the work for you. You're not looking to see how you need to bounce anything across.
Yeah.
You just add another track, and some of our tracks, I must admit, we're the same. We don't bounce backing vocals down anymore. So we end up with something like 70 tracks on something that certainly doesn't sound like 70 tracks. But because we've kept every bit of vocal separate, you end up with that amount of tracks.
Yeah.
I hate to think what Bohemian Rhapsody would sound like today. It'd be 100 tracks worth, I reckon.
It would absolutely would be. Speaking of Queen, do you have any memorable moments with Queen and hanging out with them or whatever?
Yeah, Freddie was always standoffish. We did meet them in airports and things like that. I remember Mick and I went to a pub in London, and we're pretty sure we saw the band, but we didn't think Freddie was the singer. It was a band called Smile. I'm pretty sure it was them. It would have been Brian and the drummer, and the bass player, but there might have been a different singer. And years later, in the mid-70s, we were in the that just up from the Roxy, the famous bar on
the Rainbow.
The Rainbow, and we were in there, and my manager saw Brian May, and he brought him over, and he sat him down. Now they had just had Bohemian Rhapsody out, and we just had, before Bohemian Rhapsody, a song called Action. And my manager sat him down and went, "Oh, Brian," he said, "This is Andy from Sweet." He said, "Oh yeah, I know Andy." He said, "Yeah, tell him what you think of the of his song Action, because I think you played it at the end of Bohemian Rhapsody, didn't you?" And I'm sat there going, "What?" So my manager's now dropped us both in it, and the only thing Brian May could say to me was, "I really liked Action." Now, when you listen to the, I know exactly what he means. Freddie goes, "So you think you can," and Action is, "So you think you'll take another piece of me to satisfy." So wow. There is, there's only so many notes, and there's only so many ways of doing things. But I will take that as being they thought that much of that song,
Yeah, I could see Freddie really getting and digging Sweet, and you could see it. You could see
well,
it.
Well, he wouldn't say it to us. Let's put it that way.
What do you think? He wouldn't say it, huh?
Well, he was always in his own place. The others would come over and we'd have a chat and say, "How you doing?" And in fact, it was at that time when Queen, I think, pulled out of America. They were supposed to be doing a tour supporting who was it? Oh God! See, I'm getting into my 70s here. Oh God, Phil Lynott, Thin Lizzy.
Oh, Thin Lizzy.
Yeah, and things weren't going right, because in England, if you've got things the way you want them, and you're playing support to somebody like we supported Cheap Trick, you cannot have all your tricks. You're the middle band, or you're the support, you know, on their tour. And I think Queen just couldn't handle that right at that moment. And it was something like Bohemian Rhapsody that kind of brought it back, whereby you can headline now wherever, which means you have your lighting rig and you have all the things that you need, not the things that you can do a gig with.
Mm-hmm.
You understand the difference, you know?
Absolutely. Is there a band from back in the day that you enjoyed touring with?
Well, we were headline, and the Scorpions were the support for 2 big tours in Germany, and they were great. You know, Klaus. Every time I meet him now, the singer, he keeps saying, "You know what I'm going to say?" And I said, "You don't have to say it." And he keeps going, "Yeah, without you, we wouldn't be where we are, mate." You know, we put them in front of. We were playing places like the Olympiahalle in Germany, and he said, we were not struggling, but he said we were a German band who just needed a little bit of help. And they were going down a storm every night, you know, 10 gigs with capacities of 10 to 15,000 people. And he said, we'd never have played in front of those people without you. So, you know,
wow.
They were nice. And of course, Cheap Trick were lovely, you know, lovely guys. Plus, we did lots of touring with Bob Seger.
Wow.
And I have to say, didn't talk to Bob very much. He was kept out of our way, apparently. He liked to drink and all this other stuff. So to keep him right on the road, nobody would let him out, you know, until one night. And it was Mick and I met him in the lift going down to the lobby, and we're having a night off in somewhere like Biloxi, Missouri, Mississippi, or whatever. And we said, we're just going to go over. There's a bar across there. We're just going to go and have a drink. He said, I suppose I could have one. So he came with us, and he's now had a few. And steaming in comes his tour manager, grabs hold of him and says, Bob, you know, come on. And we're going, oh, and he looked at me and Mick and went, you two, I'll talk to you tomorrow, all right? And he walked out with Bob. And now Mick and I are going, oh God, is he going to throw us off the tour for getting Bob pissed? You know? Yeah.
Oh my God.
But he didn't.
He didn't. Everything ended up good.
Oh yeah, but he had to turn around and said he can't do it. I think he loves it, but he can't. He's on tour. He's got to get up there and do it every night, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And his sax player back then, alto, he was a lovely bloke. In fact, because we had liquor in our dressing room, and they weren't allowed any before they went on stage, he would find a way of getting into our dressing room and knocking a couple of Jack Daniels back before he went on stage.
Wow. Now I got to ask you a question. With the songs you've written, co-written, and the big song, and fans want to know, Fox on the Run, great song, 1975. Man, what a time. Music, what was coming out, you know, that was just a great song, okay? And that was produced by Nicky Chin and Mike Chapman.
Well, it was actually produced by Phil. No,
Am I
Fox
wrong?
on the Road was produced by me.
Was it?
I produced Fox, yeah.
So I'm wrong on that.
Well, no, there is another version of Fox on the Run that ended up on the British Desolation Boulevard album,
which I have right. I don't have the British one. I have the American.
Right. Well, it should say there, produced by Sweet for Fox on the Run. And if it doesn't, then they've been getting away with it for a while, haven't they?
I'll tell you right now, produced. They made it really confusing here. Let's see. Side 2, second song. No, it's track 2. Mike Chapman, Nicky Chin.
Right.
Right here. Did I just start a war?
No. No, but we wrote and produced that away from everybody.
Really?
Yeah, we produced it. We made the recording over at Christmas at Ian Gillan's studio. Ian Gillan had taken over the studio. You don't believe this. this particular studio that he took over the lease on had recorded everybody from the Yardbirds to Herman's Hermits to Lulu to you name it, Jeff Beck, all these people that had recorded in this studio, and we snuck in there because we didn't want anybody to know where we were going, and he'd only just taken it on, and it was still being set up. There were still wires in all over the place, and we had a great time, on our own. And I jumped into the producer's chair and never looked back from there, So
that was where you got the producing bug from that moment on.
Well, I was producing other bands before that. Mick and I had a production company. We produced a couple of bands, but we were busy, remember. We were a busy band. We didn't have a lot of time to say, well, I'm going to take a month out here to produce this. Never got that luxury. But from then onwards, we were producing ourselves, like the next album, Give Us a Wink, and Off the Record, and Level Headed and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Fox on the Run, it's such an anthem song for you guys. But I got to ask you, Fox, it's about a band's groupie. Who was the girl? She was an unnamed groupie. Did she have a name? Was it anybody?
It was anybody.
It was anybody.
It was a piece of we. Mick was a lad, the drummer. We used to have this thing of he would say to somebody, "Oh, I see you pulled a bird last night," to somebody like in the crew or something, and he went, "Oh yeah, what was her name?" And if they said the name, he went, ha, ha, ha. He said, "You've got to take them up and not know their name, mate, and get them out of your room before breakfast," So that's where I don't want to know your name came from, And then in the morning, you don't look the same,
It's genius. It's such a great song. And for any band, like when we would jam it, myself, we would have a band called Glam Nation. That would be our opener. You couldn't start the show without Fox on the Run. Just the whole intro.
There's another interesting thing that I spotted. I was watching a Red Hot Chili Peppers gig on one of these late night things where they cut the gig down to about 45, 50 minutes. And it came back on stage to do their encore. And what did they play? Fox on the Run as an encore. And I was going, wow. My son was impressed.
See, you're already cool now to the kids because they were doing Fox. It's such a great song. Great song. Would you remember writing when you guys were writing that song? Was it a riff?
I actually wrote the guts of it because it's been released on a like one of these fan platinum rare type albums, where there's been some demos added at the end, that kind of thing. And you hear me, I'm almost whispering with an acoustic guitar singing, "I don't want to know your name," and then la 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 la, and because the words fitted, Fox on the Run, the ladder Fox. So it's that moment where you think, I'm going to change that, and you never do. Everybody said it sits lovely, and then of course Steve and Mick, more so than Brian. Brian's songwriting skills were not his forte. He was the face, he was out front, he was the singer, and so some of the lyrics was kind of tidied up, and Mick came up with some arrangement ideas, and that's how it came together.
It's the vocals are great. The layers, how it just goes on top and builds up. It's so big and epic. You don't hear that nowadays.
Well, because of the amount of tracks that we had, probably 16 then, to bounce down backing vocals and everything, everybody thinks that there was like Queen type layers, like 8 or 12 or whatever. There's only 4 generations of backing vocals. It's but it sounds big and thick because I remember learning from Phil Wainman, if they're too perfect, you need to add more. If they're not quite as perfect as they should be, you don't, because they interact with each other and they sound thicker. And he said, by the time it gets cut onto vinyl, that will have all smoothed out nicely. And he was right.
He was right. It's great. It's a sexy song. It's a great
Yeah.
song. I mean,
Or
there
you
was.
go down, or you go down the other route,
Mhm.
and like the Eagles, have two perfect double tracks
Yes,
that you can't tell the difference when you put the headphones on. That must take
absolutely,
some doing.
absolutely. But it was such a magical album song. I mean, those records from growing up and being a kid in the 70s, listen to the music, um, that album, also with ELO. These were records that, you know, Queen, those three bands that I just named, you're a part of it. It was just magical music I was listening to. Then you listen to the
Yeah,
American, like the Eagles and all that stuff. This was like magical, colorful,
yeah.
these
Well,
layers.
Jeff Lynne was working with very similar things that we were, and his editing is just out of this world. You know, he butts. In other words, he must record in, get to that point, and then start again on a new piece of tape,
Mm,
knowing that what he's going to put there, which he can't fit in there, is going to be maybe more orchestration, and then out he'll come back to this recording, because you have to do it like that, otherwise there just aren't enough tracks. You know,
no, there's an art to it.
it
There
is.
was there was an art.
It's fantastic. Why do you think the traveling Wilburys and George Harrison and Tom Petty and Roy Orbison and uh, Bob Dylan? Why do they want him in the studio with them? Fantastic.
Fantastic. And Jeff got his dream. He got his dream come
Yeah.
true.
Well,
You know?
I met him before I joined Sweet. He was in a band called The Way of, no, not The Way of Life. They were called, um, oh, well, his band before he joined up with
Before the
Roy
move.
Wood in The Move.
Yeah.
No, before The Move,
Hmm.
they were a fantastic band that he was in. But I don't know how to put this, but my band, the Elastic Band, were local in Chester, a place on the Welsh borders,
Hmm.
and they'd come up from Birmingham. And what he actually said to us was, "Do you mind if we go on first? Because we've got to go back to Birmingham." And we went, "Well, if you square it with the promoter of the club, yeah, no problem." And he said, "I've got a football match in the morning, and I've got to get some sleep. You know, this is a Saturday night." And he used to get up and play football on a Sunday
Wow.
morning with somebody, you know, in a team. And it always stuck with me. And we met them a couple of times. We did a couple of universities with them. And they were, as I said, they were a great band. You know, the bass player and him were great singers, you know,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can imagine. I like to check that out, listen to it if there's something out there that I could, find on
Yeah.
YouTube.
I'm not sure whether they did any recording. It was one of those bands that did gigs and everybody used to talk about them. And, you know, there were lots of bands like that never quite, hit it,
Yeah.
and then when I heard that he joined the Move uh, with Roy, I then went, wow, this should be good, but it didn't last. It
No.
fell apart, and then there was Electric Light Orchestra. They retained the drummer, um,
Beverin.
Bev,
Hmm?
yeah, and then Roy didn't fancy staying there, so.
Oh, no. He was almost like a
And
Sid Barrett type guy, Roy, it seems like.
yeah, and then he well, of course, he had a lot of success with Wizard.
Is it? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mm.
I mean, I'll tell you, the music back then, there's nothing like it. And we go back to Sweet, a song like Love is Like Oxygen. What a fantastic, ahead of its time song.
Yeah.
Such a
Um,
great song.
yeah. I wrote the lyrics in 74, 75. I can't remember how they came to me. I have to, because I was listening at that time, 75, 76 maybe, to a lot of different styles of music. I loved Hall and Oates, people like that. And it's, you get this, feeling of people had always pertained love to something. And it just came to me that, like love is music, or love is, love is like oxygen. Without it, you die. You get too much, you're high. And I just wrote out these lyrics, and I couldn't get anything to fit with them. And then our sound engineer, the guy who mixed us out front, is a great keyboard player, bit jazzy, loved bands like Supertramp, things like that. And he would always get on the piano at sound checks and start playing, little bits. And then we were in the studio recording the Off the Record album, and then at sound checks at gigs after this. And he played me something. He said, I've got this symphony idea, like a rock symphony. And he played me several bits. And I said, that bit, and that bit, can I record them? So I got my portable out. He recorded the 3 bits. I went back to my studio and started to fiddle around with them, but didn't do a proper demo at that time. We then had an arranger brought in because we wanted some orchestration. He was a very good keyboard player, this guy Jeff, and we wanted some orchestration on a couple of tracks. And he did the orchestration and everything. And then I played him this convoluted join thing, and he took it away. And he came back the next day. He said, "Tell the other guys not to come in." So they didn't. So between the two of us, we sat there and we worked out. I'd already got the guitar riff that goes with the ding 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 ding. So we then worked how it should go, and he put some chords in the verse that weren't really there. They're the same chords, but they've got like a bit of minor or seventh in there, that kind of thing. And the chorus was what it was. And the intro was this fanfare thing, dun 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 dun. And I thought, that's got to be a synthesizer. That's got to be a synthesizer. It can't just be the piano. And we then put together an idea for where the track should go. The rest of the band came in the afternoon, and we then sat them down and said, Jeff's got these ideas, follow them. He told Steve which bass notes to play in places. Mick loved the idea, but we had these long gaps, and we had no click track. So Mick had to keep the time with the hi-hat in the gaps.
Wow. Because
as he said, I can't play. I can play a guide piano here and there, but he said, I don't want to mess things up. So there were, in the verses, there was some, just that's why. But sometimes you hear the piano, it feels like it rushes, because it's not done to a click track; it's done to open recording. But there we are.
But the raw part is the best part of it.
Yeah, and apparently, a guy, an American guy, has got a pile of musicians together, including me, to do a reworked 9-minute version. Apparently, it's out there on YouTube now. He didn't tell me that he's put it out there. And the only bit I play that you will hear and know is the classical guitar bit in the middle. He's got other guitarists and other singers, and he's got Simon Phillips on drums.
Okay.
On this track. So, I'm now going to have to contact him tomorrow and say, why didn't you tell me you were putting it out? And apparently the producer, or the guy who's going to mix it, is the guy who's produced Rush for years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we'll see how that does, shall we?
Yeah. Paying homage to you, but then, they're not letting you know, hey, do you mind?
No.
you know?
And I think I was the only one who videoed my recording. So we sent him a video as well of me doing it.
So you have a video of recording the original cut?
My part on that recording.
Your part? Wow,
Yeah, we're
that's
going to
pretty
put it
cool.
up. I think we're going to put it up tomorrow or Monday. We're going to put up me performing my bit on the Sweets Facebook.
So it'll be on your YouTube page as well.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
So would I be able to take 4 seconds of it with your permission to add into this clip right here and then put a
Of
link
course.
and send them back to you? Okay.
Well, you should be able to grab it.
All right. Well, I'll do a link and then I'll send them to your page as well.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Wow, I'd like to see that.
This has been great talking to you.
Oh man,
Really good.
it's so great to talk to you. And before I let you go, we're almost out of here. I just got to ask you because I'm picking all these songs, and I hope you come back again, Andy. I'd love to have you come
I
back,
will.
and yeah, well, we
I
have to do
will.
another one. There's so many songs. I wanted to pick three iconic songs that I love from your band, and I want people out there, you, the audience, to click on these songs, and I want you to really discover Sweet if you have not, because it's without your band, the Sweet. You open the doors for so many bands as the Scorpions, and just so many bands have taken something from you, like Queen. But a band that covered yours is a big band out there now, Def Leppard, the song Action, which was 1975, your song. And I mean, that's another great tune, Action, right there.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
tidbits on that one you could share with us?
After Fox on the Run, we thought about what we were going to release, and we couldn't pick anything. So we were between albums, and Mick and I went out for a beer one night, and I said to him, "Do you know what we ought to do? We need to write down all our favorite bits of songs, all those little bits that we've gone. Oh, that's why I love that song, and that's why I love that song, and that And we did, and we sat down and we said, this would be the perfect song if we could find it. And we went into a rehearsal room and just started to pull things together. I had this. I did a rough demo of the intro into the verse, and we hadn't got anything that led into the chorus at the time. That liar, 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 and I'm trying to remember which song. I think we even used the word. I think it might have been Argent's Liar, because we loved Argent, Rod and Russ.
Russ Ballard,
and I just
yes.
said to Mick, liar, liar. In other words, it's like you're saying to your girlfriend, liar, liar, or she said it to you, whatever. And it's nothing like their version or anything, but you pick up that's what gives you the inspiration, if you know what I mean. And there would have been things from Yes, or from the Beatles, or from Led Zeppelin. There would have been all kinds of things in there. In fact, I'm pretty sure that middle section, that dun dun, Mick would have definitely been trying to do his John Bonham there, and then these off the wall backing vocals that we tried, with like the one side singing one thing and the other side springing off into another area. That would have probably been bands like the Beach Boys and Vanilla Fudge, and counter melodies and things. And that's how it came about. It's, let's try and write the perfect rock pop song.
Wow. Vanilla Fudge, they were a great band too. Carmine Appice, fantastic drummer, too. Yeah, your last conversation with your singer, Sweet, Brian Connolly, do you remember the last time you had spoken with him?
Yeah, it's a bit of a sad thing. When he left the band in 79, we actually thought the shock of it might pull it all back together, but something had to be done, and it went the other way. I think that the management then realized that both parties would be better off taking a different angle. I wanted Ronnie Dio to join, because he was talking to me at the time. Do you want to fancy forming a band, kind of thing? And I said, if I leave the Sweet, I don't think that they would carry on the way that it should be. And remember, half my life is in Sweet now. And he said, no, I understand that. Maybe I should join you. because he hated being in Rainbow. And I put it to the other guys after Brian. We didn't do anything until Brian had actually left, and we were working on tracks that we'd been recording, some of them with Brian, and putting new tracks together for the Cut Above the Rest album. And I had a phone call with Ronnie while I was in the studio, and I went into the studio and said to the other guys, and Mick was like, "Wow," and Steve, who hadn't said a word up until this point, "I don't think we should get anybody else in. I think we should stay together as a three-piece." And I said, "We've always had a lead singer. That's what I think. But it has to be all three or nothing, you know?" And I had to go back and phone him up and say, "I'm sorry, but, and I will tell you, it's Steve, feels that we should." He said, "Oh, no, no problem." I said, you won't find it difficult getting a gig." And he said, "I haven't left Rainbow yet." You know, so it's a funny world, should we say, you know.
Wow. I couldn't picture Ronnie in it, but I could actually, maybe I could picture it. I mean, Ronnie was one of those singers that could do everything, doo-wop.
Well, the difficulty would have been you'd have to cherry pick the past, and what you did in the future would become the new direction, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
You know, and because we were still a rock pop band, which Rainbow weren't until they had those hit singles, it's a funny way to you can't now unfry the egg. It's done, you know. It's
done. Just imagine, for anybody watching out there, I wonder what it would sound like. I'm sure somebody's going to take that conversation and do an AI thing, and they could piece it together. Ronnie James Dio with Sweet.
The other thing is, it was very tempting when we were next going to take a break to fly out to LA and meet up with him and at least say, "Should we record something?" See, but I didn't, so I'll never know. Yeah, but he was a lovely man as well.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic singer too. Always a pleasure talking with you, music. And Andy, thank you for the great music you have given us. Before I let you go,
I don't do that for everybody, you know.
You know, and I appreciate it. I got to wish you a happy birthday, first of all. When is the actual birthday? When's your birthday?
30th of June.
June 30th. Wow. Yeah. So you're a Cancer, you sign.
Yeah.
I'm July 11th.
All right.
Yeah. So there you go. Cancers. That's right. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. It's going to be good.
Hard shell, but nice inside.
But we are homebodies. Are you a homebody?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, so am I. But you're going to have a 75th. I see on your webpage, you're going to have Andy's 75th birthday bash, #1, June 29th. I see that. It's going to be in the United Kingdom out there. So I'll put links.
I'm doing 2 shows at my favorite hotel in North Wales. You're too young. You won't remember Patrick McGowan in a TV show called The Prisoner.
I remember Patrick. Yeah, totally remember that.
Well, Patrick McGowan did a TV show called The Prisoner, and he filmed it all at this hotel where I'm going to be.
Oh, wow.
They've actually got a hall where you can cram 150 people into it. So we're going to have 2 nights, and I think most of the people will be there both nights. And because it's a kind of event place, you know, it's got all kinds of things going on. There'll be lots to do. I'll have to, should we say, press the flesh. I will also be doing a Q&A and a few other things like that. People are going to be able to come and have breakfast with me, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow. That's very cool. I'll put links on that. Now, now correct me. Wasn't Patrick in the other show with Diana Riggs?
No, that's Patrick McNee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I remember The Prisoner. I remember that one. Well, that's cool. The hotel. That's some historic.
Do you remember Danger Man? No, you probably don't.
No, I don't remember Danger Man.
Right. Well, he was Danger Man, and then he was he's a spy like James Bond, who gets picked up and taken to what he thinks is an island, the Village. And it's this hotel complex with all these weird Italian style. He doesn't know where the hell he is, and it's fantastic. You should find that on YouTube.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How old's a hotel?
Goes back to the 20s, maybe.
Okay. Wow.
1920s.
1920s. Very cool. Very
Mm.
cool. I love all that historical stuff. So that's great. You know what,
Yeah,
Andy? Thank you for being here, my friend. And
no problem.
I'll edit this. I'll email it to you. And everybody watching, thank you for all watching. We'll put make sure you put your comments down below. Check out the suite wherever you are. Maybe you're close by where they're going to be playing. And remember, who loves you, baby? We do. We'll catch you all later.
Yeah,
All right,
look after
Andy.
your health. Look after your health.
That's all we got. Health. You got to laugh more. That's all we got.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. I'll see you later. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Bye-bye. You're watching Artist on Record, and now you can find Artist on Record wherever your favorite podcast shows are. Just look us up, Artist on Record, starring ADIKA Live. In the meantime, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified so you don't miss any future episodes, and click on the box right here on your screen for something else really cool. Always appreciate you being here. Put your comments down below. And as always, who loves you, baby? We do. We'll see you all later.